Hello and welcome to Finextra. I'm Emily Haller and I'm here with Johan Van Rooyen of Discovery and Rob Hetherington of SAP. And we're at the Bank of One event hosted by Finextra, SAP and Intel. Thank you both for joining me.
Thank you.
What do you see as the disruption option in banking and how are you planning to pursue it?
We think the stars are aligning for an organization like Discovery, which has deep insurance experience, a very big customer base, and deep insight into behavioral economics, to use technology and the current consumer preferences for new solutions to provide that in an integrated banking offering, full service banking offering, but largely digitally based. We want to approach this by using our data capability and then of course by using an existing customer base. And if we succeed in that, in South Africa, our home market, we would be keen to pursue that opportunity internationally where we have a footprint and also where we have partnerships, which at this stage extends to almost every continent of the world.
Rob, what are some of the key technologies available to new banks to help them realise their potential?
Emily, I think Johan touched on a couple of them actually. So the first I would call out would be technology which can contextualize and personalize the customer experience. That's very key in this new digital world. I think the second is, Johan mentioned data, so you need technology which is able to aggregate and analyze and mine huge volumes of data, structured and unstructured data, and do it in real time. So digital is all about being able to respond very, very quickly to customer needs. I'd call out a couple of others, actually. I'd call out cloud technology, simply because what many institutions need to do is variabilize their cost base and pay as they consume. So we see cloud technology being a key enabler. I think I mentioned analytics already, but just to underscore that point, I think the successful digital banks of the future will adopt predictive analytic technology to really be able to forecast and predict customer needs and satisfy those needs, in some cases almost before customers know they have them. I think that's going to be key.
Johan, what do you see as the biggest challenges to overcome in order to achieve success with your entry into banking?
Some of the more pedestrian challenges would be to execute on the technology itself. This is a very, very complicated equation. For us, we're entering territory that we had never covered before. But honestly, I think the biggest single challenge for any disruptive bank play is to dislodge the existing customer base from their existing relationships. In our view, there's an enormous amount of inertia in a typical banking relationship. We think we'll focus on that by appealing to the early adopters and appealing to the faithful Discovery customers. But the task at hand is an enormous one, and banking is in some ways much more complicated in a front-end loaded manner than insurance. We built our insurance businesses carefully and quite slowly, building the rails as we traveled along with the locomotive. A bank really needs to be built correctly and to scale and to regulatory compliance up front. So in some ways a much more difficult job than any we've ever tackled before.
What are the opportunities for incumbents going forward, and how can collaboration with new entrants and Fintechs help them remain relevant and profitable?
So again, I agree with Johan that the biggest advantage that incumbent banks have got is they have customers. In many cases, millions of customers. They have data, they have knowledge of those customers, which gives them a very rich potential to exploit and harness. I actually believe that Discovery are going to be very successful in this market, but I do think that is one of the major challenges for new entrants and startups, is that customer acquisition, that customer insight. How are they going to acquire that? Banks have infrastructure, and that has been developed over many years and cost a lot of money. And startups either need to replicate that, which is expensive, or they need to access it, which is not straightforward. So I think that's a second advantage that banks have got. I think a third advantage actually is maybe less tangible, and that is that banks actually enjoy a large amount of trust by their customers when it comes to protection of data, which is going to be key in this new digital world. So people are prepared to trust banks to a much higher degree than they are the Googles and Amazons and Facebooks of this world with their data. And I think that's a major advantage that banks can leverage. I think within those parameters, that's where banks can find new opportunities. Now, when it comes to fintechs, again, I think if we'd gone back 2 or 3 years, I think many banks would have seen fintechs as competitors. In fact, I had one banker who described fintechs to me as an existential threat to his business. I think the world has moved on. I think bankers now appreciate that the right response is to collaborate. I think fintechs think the same thing. Both have benefit that they can achieve through collaboration. And for a bank, the benefit that they can get is some obvious things such as speed to market, acceleration of innovation, some less obvious, which is fintechs can play an important role in catalyzing changes in banks' behaviour, culture, etc. I think every bank knows that it needs to go through that behaviour change journey. I think working with fintechs would be a great way to accelerate that.
Rob, Johan, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And thank you for watching.